The Wegener brothers. I have looked up to my little brother for decades. It may be odd to say that about a little brother, but Alfred showed his true character to the world, and for that, I was grateful to know him for as long as I did. I will always admire him for his bravery and sacrifice. I am heading north to see him on his last expedition in Greenland. The spring of 1931 is quite beautiful for the occasion. Granted, spring in Greenland is still covered with snow, but less snow. Alfred always loved an adventure, so it seemed fitting that today, after trekking miles on dog sleds with skis, that my team and I can finally say goodbye to my dear brother Alfred at the top of the world. I stood in front of the marker that showed where the snow buried him and said, "Hello, Alfred. It's me, Kurt. Little brother, we are a long way from where we started." I always knew you would be an explorer from when you were 6 years old, and we would explore the German countryside while on vacation from school in 1886. Mother was often sad from the loss of our siblings, and father was busy with the orphanage, so we became a pair that could rely on each other. Your desire to become a famous explorer was obvious from our childhood adventures and games. I often got tired of hearing about the great future adventures of the famous explorer Alfred Wegener, from the deepest, darkest jungles to the cold expanses of the North Pole. Hiking was the most fun, because we were able to see so many things, from the rocks that seemed to cut through the earth to the plants and animals that inhabited our explorer training ground. We shared a curiosity which helped us throughout our lives. It's no wonder that you succeeded in science at school, from childhood to adulthood. I remember the day that you completed your training at the University of Berlin and received your doctorate in astronomy. I said to you, "Congratulations, Dr. Wegener, on your achievements. What will you do now?" Your response reminded me how young you were and the juvenile goal you still had when you replied, "I don't think I will become famous for astronomy. So much has already been discovered. I think I will focus on meteorology, where I can find a great discovery. Imagine it, Kurt. I could head the meteorology department here very soon." I replied, "Well, brother, I have a job for you at the observatory if you want to work with me in the field." Working with you in Lindenberg, we got our first taste of fame. The months we took designing and redesigning that weather balloon paid off, as it stayed aloft for 52 and a half hours, breaking the previous world record. You were so excited to find that other scientists, explorers, and researchers knew of our work. No wonder you jumped at the chance when the Danish expedition to Greenland to study the ice and climate using those balloons invited you to join. The terrain was uncharted. You would be gone for months. Many others have died in the cold, but you could not resist the call to adventure. Your excitement could not be contained. "Kurt, I'm going to be on an expedition to Greenland. It is just like the games we played when we were kids. I am going to use the weather balloon technology to study the polar atmosphere. This is it. I will be a famous explorer yet." Who could have predicted that you would meet a climatologist who would become your future father-in-law on that expedition? I never really expected to be at your wedding, so in the spring of 1913, it took me by surprise. When all of our peers were settling down, you were still planning your greatness, and were not concerned at all with love and family life. At the time, you had never really even shared your feelings, other than your desire to lead expeditions and become a famous science thinker of our time. You also never wanted to hear about my feelings towards my happy family life, just to continue on with what we do as scientists. I remember telling you how proud I was of you, and you responded by talking about your latest book, Thermodynamics in the Atmosphere. And that year, my little niece Hildy was born, and unfortunately, you were not able to share much happiness with your new wife and baby for another adventure called All Germans to do our duty. As World War I began, you headed off to the battlefront with the German infantry. We traded letters at the time, where you shared your tales of glory, and I shared my sadness of missing home. The day I received your letter from the hospital is an absolute blur, but your letter will not be forgotten. Dearest brother, do not worry for me. I am now letting you keep your lead as the oldest Wegener brother, scientist extraordinaire, for I can no longer I can for no longer do it. I am not capable. I am injured, in a hospital bed and useless. I shall never lead my own expeditions to Greenland. Science will forget me. I will become an ordinary man, teaching ordinary classes. I guess the one joy I have to find is the time with my family that you always write of in your letters. Now to lay here useless and let my mind rot away with my body. Sincerely, your new brother. I was so sorry to receive that letter, and it scared me to my core, as it was so out of character for you to be so emotional in your writing. Much like our father, who was loving in his acts, but not in his emotions, you never seemed to feel more than your goals that you had set for yourself. I was so thankful to receive your next letter months later. Dearest brother, I am using some exciting tools as part of the military weather service. Since I am no longer on the front lines, I can use my science knowledge to help others. To think, with enough data about the atmosphere in an area, we can somewhat predict weather that will occur and can help people. Currently, I am assisting with the war effort, but imagine all those who could prevent accident and injury if they knew that, let's say, a tornado may occur. I can't wait to show you all I have learned and developed while on this new assignment. In between duties, I have been reading many different science disciplines. My wife and her father have been sending me notes of encouragement and different books to read. They say I could be a famous science researcher. I'm less worried about fame. I was really glad to receive a photo of my daughter in the latest package. Anyway, Kurt, you may have been right all along. Sincerely, Alfred. As the war came to an end, I was glad to be back in Germany with my family and to hear that you were doing so much better. When we visited each other in Berlin, it gave me great joy. I heard you shout from outside the cafe, "Kurt!" You seemed healthy and physically like your old self. I asked, "How are you?" You replied, "There is nothing to worry about anymore. I am fully healed and can even return to my beloved Greenland study. There seems to be a way to use the polar ice to find the composition of earlier atmospheres. But that's not why I wanted to talk to you in the first place. We're here today because I think I have found a mystery of the Earth. During the war, when I received those many science books, they were about different kinds of science, geology, biology, astronomy, and so on. I started to notice some connections between those disciplines related to land masses and the oceans on Earth. Alfred, what are you thinking? I compared the fossil records, wrote to others in many science fields, and compiled evidence that Earth's current continents were all one land mass that broke apart and moved into the positions they are in today. I started writing about it as I had the idea, and now I almost have a complete book. It's called The Origins of Continents and the Oceans. Please take this copy and give me your feedback. As I read through your book, there was so much thorough research comparing coastlines in South America and Africa, the fossils found on each landmass that correspond to where they would be put together if they were a large supercontinent. But there was no mechanism on Earth to cause this, only the evidence that there must be some sort of mechanism to cause it. Luckily, I was able to use the university telephone to place a call to you, since they were both installed after the war, since I needed to speak with you right away. Hello, Alfred. This is Kurt. Dear brother, have you read my work? Yes, and there is something missing. I know. There is no explanation for what caused all of the world's land masses to move. But do you not agree that the evidence is compelling in that they were all once together? Yes, I think you need to share this idea more widely to find others who may have an idea of what this mechanism is. But be careful, brother. I barely touched on this subject with some of my colleagues, and it did not go over well. From then on, I heard from colleagues throughout Germany about your impossible theory of continental drift. The presentation you gave in New York City was painful to watch, as the science community seemed so closed-minded. It was so sad in 1924 when you, Elsie, and the kids had to move to Graz, Austria, to work at the only university that would offer you a teaching position after your sharing of the continental drift theory. Luckily, your expertise in polar exploration allowed you to keep one of your favorite pursuits, expeditions to Greenland. I still have the letter you sent me before leaving for your last expedition to Greenland. Dearest Brother Kurt, I realized today while checking my packing list for the expedition that I would celebrate my 50th birthday while in Greenland this time. I have been looking back on my life, and I want to thank you for sticking with me. I pursued ridiculous goals and took many risks for selfish reasons. Since the war, I've forgotten fame, and fame has forgotten me. I am happy to know that my daughters have grown up well, my wife is happy, and I have completed my work on Continental Drift with the 4th edition being published. A man isn't measured by how many thousands of people know him, but the choices they make. I choose to add to the knowledge of our world, teach others so that they can seek knowledge themselves, and care for the people close to me. It seems odd to say this, but my destiny lies elsewhere from where I thought it would be all those years ago as a child in Germany. I have had this nagging thought for weeks now. I believe that I am destined to be a hero, someone who chooses the right thing at all costs. And here we are, on top of the world with your team. You told me that in November 1930, after celebrating your 50th birthday, you and your assistant made a successful but treacherous run of supplies up to one of the camps that was going to starve. When the team thanked you, you said, "All in a day's work. Now eat and stay warm." You then continued out of the site, on your skis, back towards base camp with your assistant. Unfortunately, neither of you arrived at base camp. Instead, I found you here, in the snow, under a marker your assistant placed at your grave site months later. I want you to know, little brother, the people of the world may never know your name. Science may forget your books, and you may never be famous. But dear Alfred, you will always be a hero.